Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We'll find in who we are.
Good morning and welcome to Aspire. We're very grateful you chose to be with us this morning because we're going to be working on one of the most exciting and essential of all teachings, on prayer and meditation. A lot of people think they know what prayer is. We've been taught ever since we were little children that prayer was the beseeching, oh God, give me this, and oh God, give me that, and I promise you I won't do this if you give me that. And then there's meditation, a real enigma to those of us in this Western culture. Well, I'd like to be taking a different attitude with prayer and meditation with you this morning. We're going to work with it in a way that I think you'll find most practical and helpful, so please stay tuned and come aspire with us. What does it mean to be spiritual? With the Shirley MacLaines out there teaching what they're teaching and offering insight the way they are, is being spiritual sitting in your jacuzzi on a warm summer night, staring into a candle and finding yourself in the moon? Huh? Is being spiritual shaving your head and climbing on a mountain maybe and spending the rest of your life in that kind of quiet environment? Is being spiritual thumping on a Bible, screaming and yelling? What is being spiritual? And for the first time, that is being questioned and asked. And that has never been asked before. Usually in our country, it's what does it mean to be religious? Huh? And you know what religious is. You feel bad about yourself constantly. You're always feeling like you never measure up, and that you owe the church, especially, or whomever, more. Always owing more. But those things are not being spiritual, and I'd like to explore in this program a little bit about that concept of spirituality. What is being spiritual? Is it something you say? Is it something you do? Is being spiritual that point where you light your candle and light your incense and sit in the lotus position and go off? I think there's so much to it. I don't think you can say that any one thing is being spiritual, because I think all of life is a spiritual experience. But I think there are some things that we can look at deeply in ourselves that will help us. I'd like to just make this blanket little statement. It's an easy one for us to understand. That truly being spiritual is just being yourself. Just who you are. Just really what you are. And being spiritual doesn't necessarily mean that you're as good as the last book you read. You know, you hear people say, oh, I'm very spiritual. I've read this book and I've listened to this cassette and I go here and study here and I took this course. That doesn't mean you're spiritual. Being spiritual is just really doing one of the most difficult things in life, and that is simply being yourself. Just the simplicity of self. And that's hard for us because we live in a society and in a world today where everybody wants to move us to think about this and to believe that and to accept this and to do that. And it's very difficult to find any kind of genuine spirituality. But when you return back to yourself, that's when you are the most spiritual. So we come to a point, how do you get there? If being spiritual is simply being myself, my simple self, how do I find that? And here's where we find an interesting dichotomy. Meditation and prayer. Real big problems. We will never be able to find the sense of ourselves spiritually if we are not still and quiet enough within ourselves to find out who and what we are. It's interesting how we pray in this country. We pray to be more than what we think we are. Have you ever thought about that? That's all we pray for. We pray for two things: deliverance from a problem, and number two, to have more or to be more than what we are. How can that be answered? How can that be effective? How can you have more than what you are? You see, we have a funny idea about prayer. And when I was a kid, I was taught this. I don't know about you. But I was taught that when you pray to God, you talk to God. And I always called this prayer the Perry Mason prayer. Okay? And the Perry Mason prayer was that God was looking down upon me, and that I was looking up at God, and I was trying to convince the old man that I deserved, because he was always old in my mind, I deserved whatever it was I was asking for. And I would give him many reasons. I was cute. I was the only begotten son of Gene and Ed Penn. I wouldn't do it anymore if he gave it to me. How about you? Do you ever do that when you bargain? Let's make a deal, God. And door number one is, I won't do this, and door number two, I won't do that. Which one do you want? I won't do anything. Just give it to me. And nothing, of course, ever happened. Never. It was a farce. And if it did happen, I was going, whew. But in the back of my mind, I thought it was luck. And then there's meditation. And I remember, do you remember when the Maharishi came to teach us meditation, we Westerners? He came and for many years offered it for free, and nobody took it. It was only as he put a price tag on it did we learn to accept it. Isn't that like us? If it hasn't got a price tag on it, it can't be worth it. It hasn't got a lot of glitter around it, it must not be real. Let's look at prayer and meditation. Let's talk about Jesus for a moment. Just a moment. I want to share this with you. He talks about prayer and meditation in an interesting way. And he mocks one and he tells us not to do another. Listen to this. He said, and this is on the Mount, by the way, and when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites who love to stand in the synagogues on the corners of the street that they may be seen of men. You know who they are, don't you? We see them all the time. And we are like that. I hear people, I overhear conversations. I eat alone in restaurants. Nobody will eat with me, so I have to eat alone. And as I'm sitting there eating, I often hear people talk about their prayer life and how they're praying for someone and they're praying real hard for them, and they almost want to boast about it. I prayed, 3 hours today for this person, that kind of thing. Jesus said they have their reward, and the reward is just that. Then he corrects us, and he tells us really what meditation is all about, and here in a kind of funny way. He said, but when you pray, enter into thy closet, and when you have entered in, shut the door, and thy Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. That's really the essence of prayer, isn't it? Meditation, to sit in the silence of our being in secret. He continues on, but do not pray in vain repetitions, he says, as the heathen do, for they think they will be heard for their many words. Well, there goes affirmation. I hear more truth students trying to pound in their mind to accept things about themselves that they cannot accept through affirmation. It's a very difficult process, and I want to give you a little key to that. The more that you think, and the more that you do the vain repetition thing, the affirmations over and over, the more you'll be subject to your mind. And the more you are subject to your mind, the weaker you will become. Your mind can have many thoughts. Have you ever noticed that your mind can love someone one moment and hate them the next? Rationalize some of the worst things that you and I have ever done to ourselves. Rationalize how we could have done that and why we did it. Have you ever noticed that? It's fascinating, our minds. That is being at the beck and call of your mind. And I'm going to do a talk on that in this series on TV in a few weeks. It is very important not to be at the beck and call of your mind. Jesus closes this little dissertation by saying, your Father knows of your needs even before you ask. I'd like to explain prayer and meditation very quickly. Prayer and meditation is like breathing. Meditation is your breath in. It is as you take that breath in inside of yourself, where you take God in yourself. Not your concept of God and not your theories about God, but as God is. You sit in that still kind of silence of your being, and you take your breath in. Your prayer is simply your breath out. Prayer is not the things that you talk about. Oh, God, give me this, and oh, God, give me that. It has nothing to do with that. Prayer is everything that you do and everything that you are. It is your whole effort forward. This is why Jesus said to us, "You honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me." He was talking about the dichotomy. Your lips can be vainly repeating affirmations day in and day out for positive living, but your heart be far from the work. Your prayers can be saying, "Oh God, help me here, deliver me from that," and yet your actions can actually be leading you into the problem because we're not aware. We're not deeply, profoundly aware. Your prayers are everything that you do. So if you say to God, "God, I want healing," but you aren't practicing healing in just common ways, like in what you eat, your personal grooming habits, your personal body habits, and you're praying for God to heal you, don't you think that the prayer of what you are is more powerful than the prayer of your lip? I do. And I found out that my lips do not change anything, but my heart makes everything new again. I'd like you to look this week, both at home and at here. Are you praying in contrast to yourself? Most of us are self-defeating. We are on a spiritual trip, dear friends. The law exists for us whether we recognize it or not. And the law is real simple. You get who and what you are. You can't expect more than that. The problem with a lot of us is we've become very apathetic towards this practice, our meditation and our prayer. Keep breathing. Breathe. Inhale meditation, exhale your prayer. Make your life the walk of your meditation and your prayer. You'll walk very consciously. You'll find yourself walking very lovingly. You'll find what it means to be spiritual. There are many definitions to it, but the greatest one is your own life. Thank you for letting me share with you. Thank you. We're talking about the concept of spirituality. I think people have a very weird idea what it means to be spiritual. Either you're wearing a robe or you're astro traveling or you're doing something different than most people would be doing. And the most spiritual thing in life is really just simple living, just the simplicity of living. I want you to remember that. In Zen, it's called chop wood, carry water. It's nothing more spiritual than your day-to-day life. And if you can't find it there, you're not going to find it in a guru. You're not going to find it outside of yourself. You'll only find it within. Boring realities like that turn people off because Westerners want such spectacular results. You ever notice that? I mean, spirituality was meant to be a very simple thing. But we turned it into this wild thing where we're traveling all over the world and we're table tipping and talking to our parents who have died and talking to Lincoln and all these people. And, you know, we've turned it into a circus. Please remember that spirituality is just the simplicity of returning back to yourself. Really, it's very important to understand that. Questions about this, you guys? We have questions.
To me, so many people walk around thinking they're more spiritual than I am. How can this be so?
Well, you know, religion has given to us this thing about righteousness. Can we talk? I was at a stop sign the other day. This was really interesting. And this woman to my left had bumper stickers on her car. And this will kind of tell you what it's like. One bumper sticker said, "Happiness is being a church secretary." And I told that to my secretary, and she doesn't agree with that. I don't know why. The second bumper sticker said, "Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven." Then, I won't tell you what her license plate was because then you might identify her. But the interesting was the one on the far right that had a gun smoking on this bumper sticker, and it said, "Freedom wasn't won by registered guns." I find a dichotomy there, don't you? A definite contrast. One, that Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven, but we'll blow your brains out if you don't agree with us, is kind of what I heard. That's the self-righteous attitude that we tend to have in this country. And it's a very sad one. I am no better than anyone else, and you are no better than anyone else. I am capable of doing the same things that anyone is capable of doing, both for what people would say is for the good and for the bad. But I don't believe that. I think we do what is appropriate. People who have to be right have low self-esteem. And you have to let them be there without criticizing them. If that's what they need, if a person needs to be better than you, let them be better than you. Let them be there. That's no skin off your nose, is it? It would be better for you to know the truth of yourself than to pretend like you're better than them and engage in that kind of egotistical battle, because you'll never win it. There are greater and lesser persons than ourselves. And if you are worried about who is greater and who is lesser, you will become as vain and bitter as anyone. So let people have their shtick. You know what I mean? Let them have it. And it seems to me that the most self-righteous people are always the most religious people, because they are always the ones that, and I guess all of us have been there at one time or another, we feel more inadequate about ourselves. We are the type of people that would take a job as a speed bump, you know? Maybe that's a contrast, I don't know. Next question, very quickly. Thump, thump.
Can envisioning and imagery help in healing?
Yes. Envisioning and imagery do help in our healing process. If you can close your eyes and work with that. Remember Dr. Carl Symington wrote the book Getting Well Again and talked about this idea of visualizing your blood cells and working with cancer in that way. And there's no doubt about the movement of our body and the movement of our life that can happen that way. But there is a difference between visualization of your body and your being and that of turning it outward into ambition. You must be very careful. When does something very beautiful like visualization turn to ambition? Can anybody tell me? Think about it a minute. It's when you think what you're going to get in the form of what you want is going to make you a better person. For instance, I can sit here and work on my body and maybe work on my life in many beautiful ways with visualization. Looking at it, seeing it, understanding the possibilities of it. But the moment I turn it into this, I'm going to be a better person because I have more money. I'm going to be a better person because I'm going to have this in my life and I'm not going to have that in my life. That's when it turns to ambition, and that's when you have problems. You have to watch the ego. It is so tricky. It's a slimy little devil. And you've been slimed many times by it, not knowing it. Because what was very pure in the beginning now turns to, I will be a better person for this. If you're going to visualize, visualize for the sake of wholeness. Visualize for the sake of, what could I be? What is there in me? What is there that I need to do to become whole again? Most of your work in healing means that most of what you've accepted has to be let go of. Most of it. 99% is letting go. It's only that 1/100th% of acceptance. Because when all of it is gone, all of the false concepts, all of the fears, all of the socialization, all of the affirmations, they're all gone, what are you left with but you? The most simple and beautiful you that was ever. And you didn't need all of this other stuff to gunk up your life to make you a better person. You already were. You know, really, whether you know it or not right now, you're right where you should be. You're in the position in life you need to be in. You're just as beautiful as you've always been. And deep down inside, you're very perfect. That's not affirmation. That's the truth. And if you just spend some time with yourself, getting to know who you are and what you are, get beyond all of the ambition and the egotism, you just might see the pearl of great price, which is what you are. No one is like you in the world, and we need you desperately. I look at you here this morning, and all of you represent something very special to me as people. You are pearls to me. You're not just people. You're not my people. You're people. And you do something different than a lot of people do. You have the courage to look. You may not like what you see, but you still have the courage to look. And for that, I bow to you, because I don't find many people like that in this world. Too much ambition, not enough simplicity. Next question, McKenna.
You say that being spiritual is being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are at least two of me.
I know both of
yes.
them, too.
One of them is reacting to the old things that I've been taught
Right.
and brought up with, but I seem to be awakening to so many new things.
Which one, Phyllis, do you choose to be you? Do you remember the 1%? Let's go back to that and remember. Her question is beautiful. I have many selves. Which one is me? If you cut your finger off, remember the story, the old Zen story. If you cut your finger off, 99% of you would hurt, but there would be 1% of you that what? It wouldn't hurt. Have you ever been hurt physically and you've watched yourself and go, oh, I'm hurt? That 1%, Phyllis, is you. That's the eternal you that can never be hurt by things. It is you. The other things that we have, and I have many selves, just like you do. You have more than two. You have many. You have thousands of selves that you could be. You're the one that chooses which one you're going to be. You look at it and you go, okay, well, I'll accept that one. And don't feel like you're forced to accept any of them. Don't feel forced to accept any of them. That's why I tell you to meditate and then to pray. Because in your meditation, you find the one self. In your prayer, you live the one self. You do not have to accept anything that is hurtful in your life. You have a part of you that wants to hurt you. You have a part of you that wants to degrade you. You have a part of you that wants to exalt you. And then you have that 1% that wants to love you. Don't feel compelled to take any of the others. Choose the one. See the only one that is, the one that is eternal. And go with that one. That's what being spiritual is all about. It's going back to the original self of you. It has nothing to do with traveling outside of yourself or tipping tables or talking to your parents. And I'm not saying that those things aren't possible, and in their right perspective, they're not fine. They are. But when you're seeking only the sensationalism of it, you've lost your spirituality. Please remember who you are. And if you always remember who you are, you'll remember the why you are. You are here to love. That's all you're here to do. And in loving yourself, you will find you. Thanks for being with us. In a garden as beautiful as this, it's easy to find a meditative thought, isn't it? Prayer and meditation are very obvious, very evident in a garden like this. The garden kind of breathes in and out. And that's what prayer and meditation is all about, the breathing in and out. I hope you learned something by this particular discourse and what we sought to offer to you. That prayer is not the Perry Mason prayer, as I said earlier, where we are begging and asking God for something to be done for us or to us. That prayer is our action out, our breath out. It is our every effort outwardly. Our whole life is a form of prayer. It's not the words that we utter. It's not the things that we say. It is the effort that we put forth into life. There are many in life who would have you believe that prayer is what you say, the things that you affirm in your mind. Drop all of that for a while. Begin to see that every action is an effort towards fulfilling your prayer. And then there is that quietness of meditation, where we see with great clarity the light, the love, and the possibilities of our life. I'd like you to do me a favor this week. I'd like you to practice breathing. Yeah, I'd like you to start looking at yourself and practice your breathing. Start looking at your life as the breath inward and outward. And this week, let me know, write me, and tell me how you're doing. Practice every day doing a little meditation. Maybe taking 5-10 minutes a day to be silent. And then in your silence, as you remove yourself from that meditative stance, go out into life and actually live what you learned in your meditation. You will find that you will have a sense of, an urgency to forgive, to love, to be compassionate, and to find tolerance in your life. And that is the greatest prayer of living. Write me and let me know how you're doing with it. I'm interested. We want to know the effect that these particular discourses are having on you. And if you need some extra help, we're interested. We'd like to help you in your spiritual unfoldment. Please remember that your tax-deductible gifts are very important to us at this time. We want to thank those of you who have written in and supported us all of these months and weeks, and we hope that many more of you will find this program to be of help and of value to you. This week, keep breathing, dear friend, in your meditation and your prayer. We hope you'll join us again next week on Aspire.
Every day we take a step, we understand the closer that
Dr. Penn's wardrobe is provided by the Gentleman's Quarter, located in Del Mar and La Jolla, California.
The left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are. There's so many